The East Coast, West Coast thing is a musical thing. That's separate. That's a whole thing separate to itself. That's a musical thing. When we have been beefing about whose music is better or which is this or which is that
like it's gotten
from
real
the beginning.
bad
It has
now.
because I'm like a lightning rod because I'm attacking New York's finest.
Did you feel at any point that you was like betraying New York or Biggie by going to do that interview with Tupac at that time?
His side of the story was like, how could I be mad at a whole coast? That don't even make sense. And I said, well, nobody's heard you say that. Like, this is getting bigger. And
Can you even wrap your mind around this? There was actually a time when people thought this interview was just some urban legend, floating around in hip-hop mythology like a ghost story. But honey, let me tell you the truth. It was all too real, and Diddy allegedly had his perfectly manicured fingerprints all over, keeping it hidden in the shadows. We're talking about some seriously disturbing industry secrets that would have completely exposed Diddy for who he really was. And Tupac, baby, he went off in that interview like we've never seen before. Imagine Hit 'Em Up, but in podcast form, with even more tea to spill. The real gag is that Angie has finally reached her breaking point after all these years of keeping these explosive secrets locked away in her vault. She's ready to blow the lid off everything and spill all the scalding hot tea about how Diddy allegedly threatened her to keep her lips sealed. But wait, because this story gets even more twisted, there are whispers echoing through the industry that the feds might have their hands on this interview. And darling, the rumors about Diddy threatening to unalive Angie if she dared to release it will make your blood run cold.
time, I couldn't air it on the radio because I was literally afraid that somebody would die. I literally thought I would make a bad situation worse. When my intent was to try to smooth it out and make it better, but he was so angry and passionate at the time that I really felt like if I would have came, put it on the radio, it would have got worse.
Let me paint you the most vivid picture of who Angie Martinez really is, because this story is absolutely incredible and you need to understand every single detail. Known as the voice of New York, honey, she didn't just wake up one morning with that crown on her head. We're talking about a legendary 28-year reign at Hot 97 and 105.1 FM that changed the game forever. But let's rewind this tape back to the early to mid-90s when she was just a young queen in the making, trying to build her empire both as a rapper and a radio personality. When that fateful call came in to interview Tupac, child, that was like winning the hip-hop lottery, getting struck by lightning and having all your dreams come true at once. Tupac wasn't just hot, he was scorching, literally the most talked about rapper on the entire planet. And with the East Coast West Coast beef serving nothing but drama and tension, the timing couldn't have been more explosive. Angie, with her fresh energy and raw, authentic voice, was literally heaven sent to do this interview. But sweetie, she had absolutely no idea this would turn her whole world upside down and shake it like a snow globe. Now, grab your popcorn, because I'm about to take you on this amazing journey of how this rebellious kid transformed herself into one of the most influential voices in hip-hop. Angie's story reads like a Hollywood screenplay. Born into this beautiful mix of cultures with a Puerto Rican daddy and a mama carrying Puerto Rican, Cuban, and Dominican bloodlines. Growing up between the vibrant streets of Brooklyn and Washington Heights, she was mostly raised by her fierce single mama, and honey, she was serving teenage rebellion realness every single day. This young queen was out there living her absolute best wild child life, sipping, smoking grass with her crew, and completely immersed in the intoxicating world of music, especially hip-hop. But her mama, being the protective lioness she was not about to watch her baby girl potentially go down the wrong path, so she made this dramatic, life-changing decision to ship her off to Miami to live with her aunt. But you know what they say about divine timing. What looked like punishment turned into the biggest blessing because her mother ended up following her there and landed this amazing job as a radio station programming manager. Imagine being just 15 years old and scoring an internship at the legendary Hot 97. That's exactly what our girl Angie did, and talk about being at the right place at the right time. Working alongside the absolutely iconic DJ Funkmaster Flex, she was soaking up knowledge like a sponge in the ocean, darling. By the time the late 1980s rolled around, she was co-hosting afternoon drives with DJ Inu, rubbing shoulders with literal music royalty like Jay-Z, DMX, and the one and only Mariah Carey. And let's talk about the drama with Wendy Williams, because this tea is still piping hot. Despite having to share the same air sometimes, these two powerhouses were like mixing oil and water. It just wasn't happening. But Angie's star power and charisma just couldn't be denied no matter what. Then in 2014, she dropped a bombshell that had the whole industry shook. She was leaving Hot 97 after almost 20 years to join their rivals at Power 105.1. The rumor mill was working overtime, churning out stories about possible beef with her colleagues. But honey, she shut that noise down real quick, making it crystal clear she was still tight with Ebro Darden, Funkmaster Flex, and Siffa Sounds. That same year, Jay-Z saw that special sparkle in our girl and signed her to Roc Nation. But here's the gag. It was actually the legendary KRS-One who first pushed her into the recording booth. When she dropped her verses on his 1997 album, I Got Next, with Heartbeat, everyone in the industry was absolutely gagging. The success hit like a tidal wave, and before anyone could catch their breath, she was spitting bars with absolute queens like Missy Elliott, Lisa Left Eye Lopes, and Da Brat on the Ladies Night remix that had everyone's wigs snatched. Let me tell you, sweetie, that track didn't just do well, it went platinum and strutted its way to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. At this point, Angie was literally dancing with music industry royalty and transforming into queen status herself. Record labels were practically breaking down her door trying to sign her, and in the middle of all this chaos, she blessed us with a collaboration with her friend, the iconic Mary J. Blige. In 2001, Angie dropped her debut album, Up Close and Personal, that had critics and fans absolutely living. By 2002, she was already cooking up her second serving, Animal House, which turned out to be even hotter than the first. It became the summer anthem, and honey, Angie's name was on everyone's lips in the industry and urban radio. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and in 2019, our girl went through something absolutely terrifying. A car accident that had her literally hanging on by a thread. This wake-up call forced Angie to take a deep look at her life and reorganize her priorities. After fighting through a long and grueling recovery period, she decided to switch lanes and birthed her incredible podcast, IRL.
And what's going down with that, so I wanted to get his view, and here goes a little something.
The East Coast, West Coast thing is a musical thing. That's separate. That's a whole thing separate to itself. That's a musical thing. Where we have been beefing about whose music is better or which is this
It
or
just
which
seems
is that
like it's gotten
from the
real
beginning.
bad
It
right
has
now.
because I'm like a lightning rod because I'm attacking New York's finest. They're self-proclaimed king of New York. You know what I mean? I'm attacking them so because nobody's separating themselves from him. They still
talking about
how
Biggie?
raw. Yes, they still talking about how raw he is and woo woo woo. He's a representative. He represents New York.
There are a lot
every time it benefits New York, he represents New York. When it don't benefit New York, now he's just another rapper.
I'm not
But y'all
saying
let him
that.
wear y'all colors. You let him shout y'all shit out. When Biggie came out here, he screamed out, "Brooklyn's in the house." We don't beef and say, "Why you starting a war?" Why is everybody when I say West Side, it hurt people's feelings?
I don't think it's because you're saying West Side. I think because
They think
you know,
they own me.
Nah, not at all. I think it's because, Dog Pound video came out, New York, and I'm not saying you was in the video. I know you wasn't in the video,
I wasn't
but
in it. I didn't write it. I didn't produce the beat.
All right, so let's
I
take
was
that.
in jail. The album was done while I was in jail. That's separate.
it just, you know what it is? It's New York's visualizing your camp, which to them is Death Row, which is Dog Pound, which is Snoop, and which is that whole thing. It was all one time. The New York video came out. Brothers was stepping on cars in New York, stepping on New York like they owned it. Boom, you come out, next video, West Coast.
What about the video? Yes, it is, to me, it is the best coast, and everybody in New York feel like that too. That's why they come out here and party, man. Why is everybody acting like? I'm not saying. I didn't say for me to say Cali is the West Coast. I never said New York ain't shit. I never said New York is the worst coast. I just said where I'm at, where I'm from, is the best coast. Why is that offending people?
Okay.
Now, hold on to your seats because this is where the story takes a dark turn. The interview happened right in the middle of all that East Coast, West Coast drama, and everyone knew Tupac was about to spill some serious tea. And baby, did he ever deliver?
Did you feel at any point that you was betraying New York or Biggie by going to do that interview with Tupac at that time?
His side of the story was like, how could I be mad at a whole coast? That don't even make sense. And I said, well, nobody's heard you say that. Like, this is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I went there, and he did say some brilliant, amazing things, but he was also on fire and still very angry. This happened, I'm gonna do this to this person, this person, this person, this person. And he definitely was using me to get a point across.
Of course, you're the voice of New York.
Yes. And I thought, if I aired this, more people will die. More people will.
The tea Angie's about to serve is scalding hot. According to her, what Tupac revealed about the industry was so dark and scandalous that it could have gotten people unalived. We're not talking about petty drama here. This was serious business. The East Coast-West Coast beef had evolved into something absolutely terrifying, with senseless violence that tragically took both Biggie and Tupac from us way too soon.
Fat Joe, he did an interview with Angie Martinez, and Angie Martinez told Fat Joe that the reason why she haven't released the Tupac interview is because she feel like the interview would get people killed. What you think about her saying that?
Yeah, I was there when he did the interview with Angie Martinez, and I seen that post, and I think she made a wise decision. You know what I mean? Because everybody will be involved, and when bodies start dropping and people lose their life, you know what I mean? The consequences and accountability, everybody who pushed that is involved. Like, for example, people died because the media really pushed the East Coast, West Coast war that really wasn't there. So I think Angie Martinez was wise to say, I'm not gonna release that, because she probably would have got a lot of money. It probably would have been one of her biggest interviews, especially back then. Pac was fresh out of jail, and one of the first interviews he done was with her. It would have blew up. But she was smart enough and wise enough to say, you know what, but what about the consequences? You understand? And I think, hip hop need more of that. They need more of that mindset to say, okay, even with the record companies don't really care about what these rappers put out, and if they start killing each other, because it's all about money. So I seen that, we was there, and I think that was really wise of her, to not release it, because Pac was mad. He was going crazy on everybody.
But wait, because there's more layers to this story than a designer wedding cake. The media was out there acting like messy reality TV producers, stirring the pot and making everything exponentially worse. Angie, being the wise queen she is, knew that releasing that interview would be like throwing gasoline on an already out-of-control fire, and she wasn't about to have that kind of karma on her conscience.
Exactly.
That's where I interviewed him. That's where it happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the middle of all that. It was smack in the middle of what was going on, crazy. Mm-hmm. And I was 22 and maybe, if that. It was my first big interview, and I flew to the West Coast by myself.
Wow.
Didn't know him from nowhere. And I really just went there and interviewed him. And what I got was so crazy.
Now, here comes the part that will have your jaw on the floor. Apparently, Diddy was playing absolutely no games. Word on the street is that he sent his goons after Angie, and they literally terrorized her until she agreed to keep that interview buried deeper than Jimmy Hoffa. Someone from Angie's inner circle must have leaked what was in that interview, because somehow Diddy found out that Tupac had spilled the kind of tea that could have ended his entire empire. Let's be real. If Angie herself says the content was dangerous enough to get somebody unalived, can you even imagine the bombs Tupac must have dropped about Diddy? The tea was clearly nuclear level.
When Angie Martinez, right, when she went to LA and did the interview with Tupac, did y'all know about that on Bad Boy side?
Yeah, we heard about it. And I think Puff is probably one of the only persons that heard that interview. Angie can't say that nobody heard that interview, because it wasn't her ideal not to put it out. Do you understand what I'm saying? She can say that it wasn't her idea, but it's not owned by her. Who owns that interview? Because who was sent out there? Hot 97 owns it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So she could take all the accolades for not putting it out. You understand? But when you send somebody or someone of your person do an interview under the banner of Hot 97, it belongs to Hot 97. And Puff in the back ran Hot 97. That's how he got Wendy Williams fired. You understand what I'm saying? He can make phone calls to say something, to say, don't put this out, don't do this, take this off. He had that kind of power.
So Puffy, he did hear that Tupac interview.
Why would you try to stop something if you ain't heard it? Why would you try to stop something if you didn't hear it? And if Puff asked to hear something that Angie Martinez have, you think they gonna deny him?
Everyone and their mama knew Tupac and Diddy were not exchanging Christmas cards. They were on completely opposite sides of that East Coast, West Coast beef, and Pac was absolutely convinced that Diddy had something to do with him getting shot that first time. So you better believe Tupac wasn't holding back anything in that interview. But hold on to your wigs, because this story just got a whole new chapter that's unfolding right now. The streets are whispering that Angie couldn't release the interview even if she wanted to because the feds have snatched it up. With all of Diddy's current legal drama, we're talking RICO charges and everything under the sun, the feds have allegedly reopened Tupac's case and are investigating possible connections with Diddy. The industry is buzzing with speculation that this interview might be the key to unlocking what really happened in the events leading up to Pac's tragic death. This isn't just another hip-hop story. We're talking about potentially solving one of the biggest mysteries in music history, and that interview might be holding all the answers. Can you even process all of this drama? The question that has everyone's group chats blowing up right now is whether Angie should just drop this nuclear bomb of an interview and let the world finally know the truth, or if she should step back and let the feds do their thing. Either way, this story is like an onion. There are layers upon layers of secrets still waiting to be peeled back. And speaking of more secrets waiting to be exposed, you absolutely need to stay tuned for what's coming up next, because this wild story is just the appetizer in this all-you-can-eat buffet of hip-hop drama. The secrets, the scandals, the shade, it's a never-ending feast of piping hot tea, and honey, dinner is served.